So I've been a cinematographer for the last 15 years. I've shot for brands like Adidas, T-Mobile, ESPN, Google, and I've shot 2 full-length feature films. And in this video, I want to talk about what it takes to make a good image. Like, what's the real support and all the variables that need to come together to make a good image on set. And the first thing we're going to talk about is intention. I mean, you want to have intention going into each shoot, whether it's for making one image or making multiple images, multiple setups. You know, what's your goal? What are you trying to create? This is the number one thing, right? So we have intention. And with that intention comes a bunch of variables, because like every shot really is a puzzle that you're trying to solve. There's a bunch of things that need to go into the frame, and you're trying to figure out how to make them work for your intention, for the type of thing that you're trying to create. So say it's like a commercial, right? You're going to probably have someone talking on camera or someone in the frame, and there's going to be context in the location, etc. But the first thing you're going to figure out is like, what are your variables, right? So variables, these are the biggest piece here, because you're just a mathematician. You're just a problem solver. You're just trying to find those variables and then see how they can work for you, right? And what are those variables? They're often something like, what is the location? What are the colors? And then, you know, what's in the frame. So we're going to call this like maybe set decoration. Set deck and colors are kind of an art thing. Now that could be put together as art. We of course have our lighting. And then, you know, maybe our composition. Now there's more variables, of course, but what I really want to talk about is like what it takes to actually get this done. So when you're first starting out, and I was there once too, you kind of have to do all this yourself, right? You have to figure out what to put in the frame yourself. You have to figure out where you want to shoot on the location yourself. You got to figure out the colors yourself. You got to figure out the lighting yourself, right? And that takes time and effort, and it can be hard, but I do think it's important to have all those things figured out yourself. It's important to know how to do essentially everyone's job on set yourself, because eventually when you kind of get out of those small production, you know, run and gun style jobs that you're doing, you're only getting a few hours to shoot. When you first start, you're going to eventually move up to, you know, the role of a cinematographer. So once you become, you know, a cinematographer, and I'm only using this word in the way that, you know, like I'm saying, you know, I mostly shoot commercials and narrative projects. So, you know, the cinematographer in those environments is really designing and controlling the image. Of course, cinematographer can be used in other ways. There's like documentary cinematographers. But what we're talking about today is more about the cinematographer that is working with crew, right? And so who's there to support all this? So we have, first and foremost, and this should be at the top of your list, it should be your art department, right? So we've got art department. Now, there's a lot of different departments on a set. You know, art department's what I'm going to call it, but you would have production design, you'd have wardrobe. Actually, maybe we just put wardrobe down here. But on a lot of sets, wardrobe and art might be, you know, like small to mid-sized sets might have, but they're the same person, right? I mean, if you're following the channel, on my last video, I broke down a commercial that I recently shot, a multi-day commercial with a lot of setups. Go check that out if you haven't already. But in that commercial, we'll use that commercial as an example. So we had, I'll say art. We had one person that was handling all of the art department, and she did great. So she handled the wardrobe, and she handled set decoration, and she handled like the colors that were going to be in the frame. She helped design that, right? Let's like just talk about the people that we need to actually get all this stuff done. So we have art department. We would need our G&E department. So that's grip and lighting. Grip and electric is what G&E stands for. Grip and electric. On this one, there's multiple days of shooting. We were in a studio. We were on location for one. We were outside for one. And each day I had somewhere around, you know, I had my gaffer, and then I had around 2 to 4 grips at any given point. So that was, 2 to 4 grips. Art was only 1 in this scenario. And those grips are there really for a time's sake. So they're able to, the more grips, the more hands you have on set, the faster you get to design that image. So you've got your variables, the cinematographer is there trying to solve the puzzle, that you need hands to help move those puzzle pieces where you need to go in the allotted time that you have. And a lot of times the cinematographer on the shoots that I work on currently, maybe I get an hour and a half for a setup. Some days I get more. Actually, on this last commercial, we got a whole day to pre-light one set because it was just such a undertaking. We had these projector backdrop situation. They had an actual movable wall and they had a set deck, the whole thing. We actually spent like 5-6 hours getting ahead of that, so that way we could just bring in the talent the next day and shoot it all at once, because it was like a really long dolly move. But most of the time it's like an hour and a half. Now if you have 2 to 4 grips, you're gonna be able to accomplish a lot more in that time frame. So this always comes down to a budget consideration. It's like, do I need to have more days, more time, or more people? And like, what can we afford? Because like, oh, we need to get 10 shots done today. Well, then we need more people because we can make that work better, right? So 2 to 4 grips and the gaffer, plus gaffer. Like this is a pretty, normal situation. I do work on a lot of sets too, where it's like I have a gaffer and a grip, and I have like my grip truck. Whereas in this scenario, we had my grip truck, but we also had access to all the lights and the gear in the studio that we were working on. And then of course you've got camera. Why does it keep going to that? You have camera, which in this case, I had a first assistant, first AC, which is really all I needed. The other people, the G&E team, they were camera savvy, so they did help us on a couple things, building a gimbal, getting it rigged up on a big, overhead Dana dolly rig, etc. But a lot of times you'll have a second AC as well if you are, once again, it's a speed thing. So if you have 2 camera assistants, you have one that's slating if you need a slate, one running back and forth to get batteries, that sort of thing. And you can have your first AC just being the focus puller there all day, pulling focus for you. But generally speaking, the first AC is in control of the camera as well. They're going to take it from the DP, they take it from me, the cinematographer, and get it off my hands when I don't need to have it, right? And they're just generally taking care of the camera. So for this first AC, and sometimes, a second AC. I've been on shoots where we've had multiples of these, depending on what we're doing, if we have multiple cameras, etc. And then of course you have, your director. So the director's there with the full vision of the project, directing the talent, making sure the talent is doing what they're doing on screen, keeping the vision alive the whole time. I guess I haven't even talked about the cinematographer as well, but yeah. Director, helping with whatever needs to help in that department, really just making sure that all the shots are getting made that they have in their mind. But with that, you sometimes have a first AD, first assistant director, which on a more like mid-sized shoots, I'll have an AD, which is someone that's really keeping us in line. Really being like, okay, here's the schedule. They're trying to mostly run the set. Often the cinematographer kind of runs the set. They're the one that's like designing the image. The thing that's actually hitting video, the cinematographer is doing, actually creating the image. But a lot of times you'll have the AD there keeping you, okay, we got to have lunch at this time, so on and so forth. We got to get the next shot done by this time. And they're like always next to the cinematographer, like, do your thing, get it done. Put a lot of pressure on you to get it done. But you gotta be nice to the first AD because they're making things happen. Now, I don't always have a first AD, but what happens a lot on the kind of small to mid-sized stuff is that you'll have your producer. Now, the producer is doing a lot on a commercial shoot. The producer is essentially a producer, a line producer, and an AD. They're going to they're going to wear like 3 hats. They're going to keep time. They are going to, make sure everyone's taken care of. Like essentially if like an actor flies in or wardrobe's coming in, the producer's there to facilitate everything. They're making call sheets. They're the one emailing you at midnight the night before to tell you that you need to be there at 6 a.m. for the shoot. They're really they're the glue. The producer is awesome. They're the glue. They're holding everything together. And they're going to be talking with everyone. They're sending out the emails to the actors. They're talking to the director. They're connecting the director with the DP, or, anyone that needs to really get connected. The producer's helping with that. I don't know. Is that worth putting down? Connector? Right? So that happens a lot on the small to mid-sized commercials. The producer's kind of doing the AD's job. This is very common. This is common even on low budget, feature films that I've done. It's like the 2-for-1 situation. And then also, of course, you have the cinematographer. I'll just put DOP here. DOP for the sake of this. Which that goes without saying, right? The director of photography is there to help build the image. And if you're watching this, I'm guessing that's what you are doing, or that's what you're aspiring to be doing, is you're aspiring to be a cinematographer. So really all I'm getting at here is do you see this list? So here's our main components that need to happen, right? But it takes I already have the cinematographer up here. That's funny. But it takes a lot of hands to get it done. That last commercial I did, we had cinematographer, we had art department, we had 2 to 4 G&E, we had gaffer, we had a first AC, we had our director on set. We also had a second creative. Oh, the creative producer was there. So we had, here, let me get rid of DOP. That's just silly at this point because I already did that. That's okay. We had a creative producer there, which on a lot of shoots, if you're working with an ad agency, that would be your creative director, which is coming from the ad agency side. And they're the one that probably came up with the idea for the commercial. But then you have a director there to actually make sure it gets executed, and so on and so forth. So, and then a lot of times you have sound. I mean, that's not for building an image, but that's another person on set. So yeah, first AC, second AC, director, first AD or producer. Sometimes they're the same. Producer's doing all the stuff, and then you have the creative producer. So it takes a lot of people to, make an image, to get someone in frame here, to, light them, to, make sure there's a background happening, set direction, making sure they're wearing the right colors. It takes all of this to paint the frame. It takes all of this to get all this going. And like I said before, with starting out, what I encourage you to do is to learn all of these positions on your own. Because you're going to have to be on your own. If you're just getting going, maybe you're trying to make some spec work to get out there and show off what you're made of, what you're capable of, and you want to start attracting more work. You want to get on a set with all these people there to support you. Well, go through and start to learn a little bit about this. I think David Fincher was the one that said it, that he is just as good at everyone else's jobs on set as they are. And it's important to be that. Now, I think that's a tall ask. Obviously, people that are doing it every day are going to be more dialed and optimized than you are. But the point is, you're there looking at all the variables as a cinematographer. So you need to know how all those variables work. Well, how does wardrobe work? What are the good colors to put in the frame? I talk about this inside my cinematography course so much. It's I care so much about what goes in front of the frame that I'm in there with the wardrobe. I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing? What kind of colors are you doing? Ooh, I like how that blue looks off that brown background. I would go that direction. Well, they're like, well, they kind of want to bring in some white. It's do we have to use white? That's going to really contrast too hard with the camera. The highlights are going to get kind of rough on the white shirt. Can we get a little bit more color, darker, make it more rich, make it more moody, make it more cinema. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, if you'd rather do that, we wanted to go these two directions on the color, and then the DP ultimately could have a say so in that. I highly recommend that, right? So you need to be paying attention to those colors. You can't just show up and be like, hey, I just wanted to light it and make it look good. I like this lens a lot. Like, what you put in front of the camera is so much more important, right? And then when it comes to location, same thing. You're like, yeah, this is the location we were thinking. I mean, you know, ideally you're on that scout. You're with the director and the creative director from the agency and with the producer, and you're having input on all of this stuff that's going to go in the frame, right? Set deck, same thing. You know, set deck starts coming in. They're really designing. They're doing awesome. But like get in there and be like, okay, for this image, maybe that's too messy. Or for this image, let's make it messier. Let's add as much to the frame as we can. You have to be a part of all these conversations. And of course, you know, lighting, you're going to be a part of that conversation. You want to know what's going on in the room when you're doing the location scout. Like, what are the lights that are already there? What's the time of day? Are the lights going to come, you know, is the sun going to come through the window here? Is that going to hurt us? Or are we going to lean into that? These are all things that you need to be thinking of, right? Of course, composition. You know, so yeah, you are in exchange with all of these people. You're obviously going to be talking with the director about, you know, what's the creative, and you're doing that beforehand. Like, what needs to happen? Is this going to be bright? Is it going to be moody? First AC, it's kind of nice if you know how to pull focus or know what they're going through with their focus wheel. Like, oh, this is messing up. If you're there and you can help, then great. If you can't, then you can't. But like, knowing what everyone's doing on set is going to help everything be more efficient. Your communication is going to be better, right? So G&E, I mean, knowing how to C-stand is set up, you know, knowing that, like, hey, I want to use this. Maybe we should pull this off the truck. Well, they're going to probably have a different suggestion, but at least you know why that suggestion could be good or bad. So if you sort of need to know what's going on in G&E as well. And even from a producer AD, I kind of act as like my own internal AD a lot. I will be like, you know what? I intentionally always know that at some point the producer, the AD is going to walk up to me and say, you're out of time. So when I'm on set and I'm starting to light, I'm like, okay, guys, no lollygagging. This is what I want to do. This is how I think we should get there. What do you think, Gaffer? What do you think are? And then we start moving forward. And sometimes I make the compromise call on time. A lot of times I'll be like, what if we pull this off the truck? I'm like, that's another 2% to the image. It's not worth it. We're not going to make the day if we do that. But that's what the cinematographer's job is. That's what they need to be thinking about, right? They're the one that kind of glues that part of it together, glues the image together. So I do it myself. I kind of like self assistant direct myself to make sure I'm always on time. So I don't have to have those conversations and I'm getting ahead of it. I'm like, oh no, we can make the day if we do this instead, right? So yeah, these are just like all these things that that end up on a set. I think people don't really know the workflow of a set. And so I thought it'd be fun to go through and really just show off what it takes to make an image. And when you're talking like bigger shoots with certain types of specialty gear or special locations or car rigs, sometimes you need more or less, right? You need more people there for certain things. You might have a video village and you need someone that's dedicated to video village, helping the client with their monitor. These are all things that you'll find on a film set. So I hope that was helpful for people that haven't really been around that yet and they're kind of curious about it. You can go watch my last video where I break down a bunch of images. It's mostly from a lighting perspective, but there's a bunch of behind the scenes in there of what all the crew was doing, if that interests you. And if you're interested in learning about cinematography, you can come join me over in the DP Mindset, which is my community. It's my learning community. Inside there, you get my full cinematography course, which is 18 lessons and my whole workflow of how I shoot an image every single time I show up, my whole mindset to the whole thing. I also have a coaching program in there that'll take you from where you are now to positioning yourself as a cinematographer. We'll build out a portfolio. I'll walk you through how to do that the whole time, making better images, building your website, promoting yourself, and getting you out there so you can become a cinematographer yourself. So if you're curious about that, the link is in the description below. And as always, guys, I'm Suja Sakurai. Peace.